are live.
And you've got to get me one of those. You got to get me that logo, just so that I can properly make one of those myself. One of the
Make
intros.
one of those yourself.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
My apologies sincerely for running a little bit late. It's been an emotional roller coaster of a week. Well, for those followers of the channel, you know that one of my good friends had a death in his family. And I offered to make an urn for that loved person's mother who passed. And it flies to Honduras tomorrow.
So you had a deadline.
So I had a deadline. It flies to Honduras tomorrow. I think at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. is when they leave the house. So that was a bit of a delay, but I did kind of suggest, and I think that it would be appropriate. I'm gonna kind of show. I see you, Kestrel. Yep, I'm gonna show that. So just so you guys know that the delay, there was a cause for it. It was me. And because of that, there's a little bit of like an emotional like overload, adrenaline dump, something like that that's going on right now. But here's how it turned out.
You do good work, man.
So I'll likely stitch that into a video. Oh, I have another video. Hang on, let me see if I can't show this one.
You know you're gonna make them cry when they see it, right?
Well, I told them to watch, like at the beginning. So this is something where I don't know if I mentioned it before, but this urn is going into a mausoleum. So the family, there's no ashes that are being kept. So what I did as a compromise was I decided I was going to put a lock on the urn, and I will be giving each of the surviving children, I'll be giving them keys and their own little box to keep the key in. For the urn, share the screen, because the urn, it locks. So
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So that's that. And let me see. Just because I'm not quite done yet. It's like I just finish it and I'm not ready to be done with it.
I know that feeling.
You know that feeling when you make something and you put your heart into it, and it's like you're there, but you're not really ready to let it go.
Yeah, you're like, this is good, but could I make it better? When do you just say it's done?
I know. And you can't. And Apple Silver, to your comment, no. What makes this emotional is it's not red oak. So this is traveling to Honduras, but this particular friend, my friend Ricardo, he is from Honduras, and there is a family heirloom table that is from Honduras, made of actual Honduran mahogany, which you cannot buy abroad anymore. You can only find this in Honduras. But I used the skirt of the table, and I resawed that, milled it up into panels. So what you're looking at, each panel individually is a grain seaming or a grain matching of 4 individual pieces of wood. And you know what, as we go through the photos, I challenge you to find where each individual piece of wood is, because
challenge not accepted.
Yeah.
I've seen your work, not accepted.
And that would be the Virgin Mary, engraved in the top. So this little box, I don't mean to say little, is going to be making a travel a little flight tomorrow. So again, my apologies for being late, but
I feel like he had a decent reason.
it was an emotional reason. It was impactful. You've done these projects too, Ian. Ian's a leather worker. I'm a woodworker, and it's one of those where there are projects that just you do because you're emotionally invested in them.
Those are hard.
They are hard.
You just want it to be perfect.
You do, and you don't let it end until it's about as good as you can get it going out of the shop. And the best part is, because Ricardo is a friend and because he lives across the street, he was able to spend a couple of days popping over and watching me work as I was kind of making the last bits of it and putting it all together and putting the pieces together. So I'll stitch this up and create a video for it, and I'll try to add it to the member stream. And the reason I add this stuff to the member stream or the members content is because YouTube likes to do this whole thing where it's like, here, we have this platform that we want you to express yourself. We really want you to be yourself and, show the world all the things that you want to make. But pick a box, select the box of content that you're going to provide. And if you go outside of that box, we're going to destroy it.
This is why I've got a second channel.
Yeah. And
but,
I need to make
a lot of my leather work will probably go on. I'll probably start doing more leather work on the members only.
Yeah. So this is why this stuff kind of stays members only, not because I want to hide it, but honestly, just because YouTube doesn't really like when I show it. Oh, but this engraving.
You did a good job, man.
It turned out so cool. Okay.
Don't you just love when that
I know.
When you're like, I really need something to be good. I really need it to be perfect. And then you're lucky and it is.
Well, you're lucky and you have the fights along the way where you're fighting the material you're using, you're fighting the process, you're fighting skills that you think you have, but you end up having to try and recalibrate. Dude, Ian, the configuration that I had to drill the hinge out, the hinge receptors and the lock receptor, I had this thing clamped up to the front end of the CNC. Oh, I took a photo of it and I sent it to Ricardo and I said, look, you are seeing this photo because this worked out. If this did not work out, you would not be seeing this photo. It was that one of those sketchy. We're about to do some sketchy. Yep. So,
well, I'm working on a project for Prototopics. And I can tell you that I'm going to have to do some adventurous stuff to get it done. Stuff I've never done before. I've never operated a router yet. And I got to get the router going to make that happen.
It's one of the most dangerous tools that are out there.
I know. And if you see me doing it, you'll see me doing it with my hair well backed up and, being as careful as possible. But I've got to use a router to trim off, basically to try to make wooden frames. So I got to indent some material for where it's going to grip into some leather to make a. So it's going to be adventurous, and we'll see how it works out. But I'm hoping it works out.
I'm sure it will. That's the other thing is skilled woodworkers, skilled creators, skilled crafters. The skill is both in the talent to do the thing, but also in the talent to know how to fix the thing. And we all make mistakes, left, right, and center. And the true people who love doing this stuff, it's not about the mistakes you make. It's about fixing them so that no one else can see them. And then you're a true craftsman. You're a true craftsman when you point out every single mistake you make in an object.
Yeah.
It's
if you watch the streams where I was working on those coasters for Uncivil, and I'm like, this I don't like, this I don't like, this I don't like. So, yeah.
Oh yeah. So before we get completely off topic, let me hit the super chats that are going to be asking about the urn, because we're going to get into a trial of the century, and bringing up an urn later on in that trial, while a certain person in this lawsuit got metaphorically buried, it's not appropriate to bring that up later. I don't know if that was. Is that the right way to say that? I think that sure, I'm going to stick with it. We're gonna do that. We're gonna stick with it. But yeah. Rosalind Duke, thank you very, very much. That's a very, very, very generous of you. You just made my face leak. Here's some towards the shipping. The shipping is handing it over to my neighbor and having him very carefully take that through airport security and make its way to Honduras. The scary part was I locked it. Oh, Ian, this is great. I locked it and I put the key down and I was like taking a picture just to make sure the lock worked. And I was looking around going, where did I put the key? Where did I put the key?
No. Oh no.
That an urn doesn't really serve its purpose unless there's the ability to put the remains in the urn. Oh, but we found the key. So the key is now safely inside of the urn where it cannot be locked inside the urn. But yeah, thank you very much, Rosalind Duke. That's very, very kind of you. Brenda Stafford, thank you very much. That's beautiful. Thank you. Pants, thank you. The most impactful aspect of this trial to me is that it brought us all together. It's the trial of our lives. Here's to both of you and all of us. Thank you, Pants, for that. Mary Coppola, thank you very much. Stunning. It was impactful to, yeah, it was impactful to read. Waltzing Matilda, the urn is beautiful. Thank you very much, Waltzing Matilda. Creed M, good question. Was the engraving CNC'd or hand carved? It was CNC'd. And people criticize people who use a CNC. I find that it's a tool like any other.
Yep. I mean, I want to get a leather or a laser cutter. And yeah, I mean, it's just a tool.
Yeah, it's a tool.
That said, they're expensive AF.
The lasers?
Yeah, I've determined that I'm probably going to use Roll of Law just as like purely fun money channel because it doesn't make much of anything at this point. But so Roll of Law is currently dedicated to saving up for a laser.
Yeah, well, you can do the laser attachment on CNC, by the way.
Yeah. Yep.
So if you get a CNC, I can teach you how to put a laser on it.
But the CNC is also expensive.
That's true. They are. I mean, it's that one wasn't too bad. I do want to call out some gifted memberships. One more second. Here we go. Angelica Delayana. Yeah, Delayana. That engraving of the Blessed Mother Mary makes it so much more beautiful. I'm Catholic and seeing this project warmed my heart. You're an amazing artist. Awesome job, Rob. Don't apologize for being late for this special once-in-a-lifetime project. Thank you. Yes, the Liliana Bita, she was very, very Catholic and a person of very, very strong faith. So putting that on there was a special request and one I was happy to do. But thank you very much for the very, very generous super chat. That's very, very kind of you. And before we get rolling, there were a lot of gifted memberships. People apparently have seen that the new format involves some members-only content backstage and have decided to just gift memberships out the wazoo. I think everyone that's in the chat right now is probably a member at this point. And that's amazing. So Brentwood Chic, thank you for the 10 gifted memberships. I see the members chat, Perceptions of Reality. This trial of the century made this wonderful community possible. Thank you. Iris in Texas, thank you for the membership chat. Trials of the Century and Lawyers and Dragons made my May my favorite month. We're Lawyers and Dragons coming back next week.
I'm eager for that.
Oh, it's going to be fun. Rosalind Duke, thank you for the member chat. Geofence training my pawn herd. We have an 8-point buck roaming around, and she's inclined to chase. Oh, no. Luckily, it's just a ring collar. It works. Okay.
I got a solution for the 8-point buck.
Oh, yeah. Ian's got Well, people might. Ian's got a rather permanent solution. Yeah.
Just
Chris,
around the hunting season.
Crystal Taylor with the gifted memberships. Same thing with neurodivergent counselor. Rabbit with gifted memberships. Lynn with gifted memberships. Nicole Christine with gifted memberships. Susan with gifted memberships. Infinitely April with gifted memberships. John Carter with gifted memberships, Sarah Bellum with gifted memberships, and Jesse Charles with gifted memberships. At some point, StreamYard's going to let me pull those up because it's pretty incredible.
StreamYard's got to get that sorted out.
Yep. And Kathy, to this question, when you see the little gift box at the top of the chat, if you click that, there should be a little tab, a little thing that says "Allow Gifted," so you can receive a gifted membership. So, yeah. And the membership stuff, we should talk about the format for Trials of the Century. So Trials of the Century, you guys might have seen the headline. It says episode 1. Well, it's not really episode 1.
It's episode 1.
It's episode 1. It's episode 1. We've done some historical trial content. We're just recreating it for reasons. We're not going to go into the reasons, but we're just recreating it because we want to. And we want to do it our way. So we have covered in the past, and we will be recovering a bunch of old historic trials with Leopold and Loeb, the kidnapping of. Why is my brain failing me right now, Ian?
Probably because it's entirely devoted to woodwork.
Emotional overload. Yeah,
and
that's
so
where it is.
You could probably tell people like all the different, kinds of glue and which one is most appropriate for a particular wood project.
It's transitioning over. I need to talk historical trials. I need to get my brain back into the trial mode. The kidnapping of Lindbergh's baby, H.H. Holmes. We've got Dudley and Stevens, which is cannibalism on the high seas. That needs to be recovered. Linda Chamberlain, which is the dingo ate my baby case, which if you ever hear that joke again, after you cover that trial, after you see that trial, you might think differently about it. We've got the McDonald's hot coffee case. So we'll be doing a lot of those breakdowns on these historical trials.
Morin, Milgard, and Marshall.
Oh, that's another one. That's one that's personal to you.
Yeah, well, those are the big sort of Canadian ones, because which nobody's ever heard of, but they're huge in Canadian discussion. So lots of those, I think.
Yep. And this is a good one. We have already had conversations with Jeff from Legal Vices about anything involving maritime law. So the new format for Trials of the Century. Ian and I originally were planning on doing one of these a month. We'll see how we feel content-wise. We might be able to do more, but we don't know yet. So one of these a month, and we're going to do a behind-the-scenes stream prep, where essentially the week before we go live with the show or with the episode, we're going to do a prep stream where we walk through the material, we do some research, we get some people to do some background, and that's a members only that's streamed to both members of Ian's channel and my channel. So if you are gifted a membership, or if you are a member to Ian's channel, Runkle of the Bailey, or my channel, Law and Lumber, those lives will be streamed to both sets of channel memberships. And then the live the following week. So that's the format. We're sticking to it. I think it's going to work, and we'll go from there. Thoughts? No thoughts.
No thoughts. I think we can dive right in.
Okay, that works. Shall we swoop?
I think we should swoop.
New swoop or old swoop?
Let's go with new swoop.
New swoop. New swoop. So, Trials of the Century. What makes a trial of the century? Because that name gets tossed around quite a bit. What is it that we look at in terms of how to qualify or how to make these judgment calls on a trial getting worthy of the title that something that's going to change the law forever? We had this thought, and we came up with a number of different things. Let me see if I can't find a way.
was going to say, we got to find the criteria that we came up with, because
And that's
we came up with some
now.
criteria as to what we thought made a trial of the century as opposed to just a trial.
Yeah. And that's what I'm pulling up. And for those of you, these will in the future be slides. I promise you, I really do. I just wasn't able to create slides because stress on other topics. But in the interim, what we're going to do is this. We're just going to do things the old-fashioned way. And
just waiting for him to notice.
Why? What if anything was? Oh, I don't like you anymore. I mean, yeah, but damn it, that's frustrating, Ian.
I mean, that was one of the themes of that whole trial.
It was. All right, give me 1 second. I want to make sure that I've got. You guys are seeing some modification and some ad-libbing like on the fly, and I'm not the best at it, but I'm trying very it's just, you do these things, you stress, and I don't want people to think that this is what it's going to be like forever. Print the file, print to PDF, so I can show to people. What am I going to show the people? And desktop. Like I said, guys, even I'm more organized than this for the most part. I say for the most part because also not really. And share the screen. So
where is it? There we go.
What makes trial worthy being called trial of the century? A couple of things that we came up with. One, it has the ability, and it steers the law in one direction or the other. It's a turning point in the law. So essentially, there's something that takes legal jurisprudence and shifts it in one direction. And should we apply the factors now? No, let's do that later. Let's walk through the factors first.
Let's walk through the factors, and then we can go through them and apply them as sort of individually and discuss.
Yeah. Question that society is conflicted on. So societal values being questioned by some of these trials. Think Dudley and Stevens, cannibalism on the high seas.
Yep.
Question that we ask. Yeah.
A lot of them have just come down to condemnation of bad acts, because a lot of trials of the century get sort of notoriety or their degree of attention because they're an allegation of a particularly horrific crime.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that does make societal values get questioned because people are saying, like, what are we about as a society? Like the Kitty Genovese.
That's a good one.
People are going like, what are we about? There was all sorts of discussion around that. And I mean, Depp v. Heard had some serious issues on that one. So
I thought you said we weren't going to apply the factors that Depp v. Heard.
We haven't applied it yet, but we can go into more discussion later. That's just sort of mentioning that it exists.
That's fair. Okay. Impact society over and above just those in the courtroom. So every trial has somebody that's in that courtroom whose life is going to be impacted. And that extends to some immediate people, whether it's immediate family, whether it's people that are in the local community. But with trials of the century, oftentimes you will see that the result of that trial, and this is where that clarifier comes in, the disposition of the trial itself, or the trial itself, and the fact that the trial occurred, or some aspect of the trial, has an impact on society kind of as a whole. With this one, I think of the Sparky trial. That's one that caused a massive debate among all of society about what we're teaching in schools, whether religion is taught in school, whether evolution is taught in school. It had an impact. I mean, to the point where Clarence Darrow was holding court in the courtyard. Holding court.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Courtyard. I mean, seems like a good place.
it was. So that's a good aspect, that the disposition of that trial has an impact. Also think Nuremberg trials.
That was big. I mean, Nuremberg trials we still reference in all sorts of contexts that have nothing to do with the Nuremberg trials. Like you'll hear people say, "Oh, I was just following orders," in sarcastic tones, right? Because we know that was actually one of the big legal issues of the Nuremberg trials is just following orders. Is that sufficient? Is that a defense? Particularly where we're talking about horrific acts. Like, I mean, the Holocaust, I think I don't think I'm being controversial to say that it was horrific. I'm probably understating it dramatically, but but it's had implication. I mean, the principle from the Nuremberg trials has, if you're in the military, they still teach you that. Like, you have a responsibility to ignore certain orders. And there have been people who have who have refused to follow orders and have relied on that and been cleared. So,
and then you've got public debate on the subject matter and society. So essentially every one of these trials stems a certain amount of public debate. Right? We have this notion that from these trials, and what makes them significant is that the impact goes beyond just what we're talking about in court. I said we weren't going to talk about Depp. Dang it. What am I trying to say? It's not Depp. Help me out.
But a lot of these trials do result in debate and discussion of the justice system. And in some cases, the legitimacy of the justice system, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Especially if you think criminal trials.
Yep. I mean,
low.
Yeah. All sorts of things. I mean, in Canada, a lot of the ones that I mentioned in terms of like Morin, Milgard, and Marshall really shook the question of the legitimacy of the justice system, because they were convicted and then ultimately unconvicted, right? And that unconviction that they had to do was such a huge factor, when they had to go and revisit those, that in a lot of cases, it's actually changed the justice system. And I can say that another one that we should probably cover at some point, which is Sofanow. It's another Canadian trial. I cited Sofanow and the Sofanow inquiry in one of my cases. And I can tell you it had an effect on the judge when I said, like, this is a situation that raises the specter of Sofanow. The judge went, and like had to sit back and think about it. Because, yeah.
So, what you guys are seeing is editing on the fly. Slides on the fly. So the public debate on the subject matter in society and the media involvement, I've made that a special note because honestly, the way the media handles and covers a bunch of these trials is itself worthy of discussion. I think about Sam Shepard and the media that was going after him. Sam Shepard, for those of you who don't know, was the inspiration behind the movie The Fugitive. It wasn't me, it was a one-armed man. And that trial, he walked into that trial completely on one side. Like the entire media storm surrounding that trial was guilty, 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 guilty. Think O.J. Simpson and the media surrounding that trial. think Rodney King, think all of these different trials that were so significant where the media plays a role in how the public perceives the trial.
Yeah, and the problem is that sometimes the media gets it right, but sometimes they get it wrong. And when they get it wrong, they're typically very devoted to a particular outcome. And I guess we'll talk about that a lot in this one.
Mm-hmm. So that's one key factor there. Perception of the justice system and the impact the trial has on the perception of justice system. This one's a big one. Because this one is, I mean, this is one of those where how people perceive the system. The justice system relies on trust. A lot of it does. And how people perceive what's occurring in these major trials is significant. Because it can really steer people in one direction or the other. If, for example, in the Rittenhouse case,
oh yeah,
not to say that would make it, but people had a very, very, very firm position on whether Rittenhouse was guilty or not guilty, and the media came in and tried to steer people in one direction.
And I mean, they got really decided on that, and I thought it was like, I thought with Rittenhouse it was very much a concerning thing, because people were like, you have to be on one team or the other, and the team wasn't based on the evidence. It was based on like social alignment, which groups you sort of felt most associated with. And I was in the weird position of being like, I don't necessarily agree with some of the supporters, but I also don't see how Rittenhouse can be convicted on this. Like after I saw the video of Rittenhouse running away and then, you know, him turning and firing, I was like, I don't think they can convict him here. Just on that, like, I was like, And then when I heard additional things, I was like, ugh. And I mean, you don't have to like or dislike Rittenhouse to get to that conclusion. He can be the worst person ever. And still, but it sort of became, a lot of these things kind of become proxy trials for like one social viewpoint,
for one
against
social
another,
viewpoint or one social issue.
And trials are really bad for that. Trials don't work well as this proxy fight over social issues, because often the facts don't necessarily work out how you want. In Canada, we've had a few that are like that. There was the trial of Gian Gomeshi was one, and I mean, it's a bit of a controversial trial, but that one, it ultimately ended up that the facts didn't work out as some of the social pressures wanted it to. These things get difficult in practice, and it's just it's tough.
One converse to that is also Leopold and Loeb. I go back to that one because of Clarence Darrow, and his closing argument that it wasn't about guilt. Guilt was basically stipulated. Guilt, they knew it took place. But Clarence Darrow took that opportunity to attack the notion of the death penalty.
And did so really well.
Really well. So that's something fascinating about that particular trial. But yeah, you're right. It's yeah, I'm seeing comments. I have to remove the pinned post. I do have to remove the pinned post. Let me just do that. I'm not late anymore. I've been late. I've already been done being late.
Well, we pushed the stream back, and then we pushed the stream back.
Exactly.
And then we were late to the second pushback. But you had a good reason.
Like, we is more me. So
I was
that's
ready
my
to go
apology.
whenever, but that said, I'm also happy to make sure we get things done sort of when they need to get done.
Yeah,
So.
Ian's last text message to me was raw, but with like 5 B's. Like, are you alive? Yes, I am.
I just
yeah.
wanted to make sure that you weren't like, sucked into a circular saw or something.
Oh gosh. All right, this one's kind of unique. Worldwide implications, effects that go beyond the borders. With this one, I thought Lindy Chamberlain.
Yep.
And Dudley and Stevens. Because that was a societal glance. Like, that was a glance down society, like saying, hey, there's a shift in the Overton window. And
that one was really a shift of like one particular dude who had an idea.
I would say one particular dude. You're talking about the judge?
Yeah.
Yeah, he had opinions that should not be how society functions. But again, can you really say that his opinions in that regard were that off? Because the law
I
of
don't
the
know,
sea,
because at the time they might well have been. And what I
that's
mean
true.
by that is that at the time there was sort of so romantic notions about
The sea.
About the sea and like what happens. In some ways, people romanticized how horrible the sea was. It's a kind of a weird thing to say, but yeah. So there was some romanticization about that.
Yeah. Going on. Legal precedent. This one isn't necessary, but I thought this is important. So with this one, you think Plessy v. Ferguson. You think the staged cases, the cases where there's a big question that society is battling over. And there's a trial that gets that matter heard up to the Supreme Court. Plessy versus Ferguson is one of them. Brown versus Board of Education is another one. A lot of these trials, and for these cases, these are oftentimes show trials. The trial itself isn't really that significant. Honestly, Scopes Monkey trial. That trial, while there was a lot of tension around it, that was intended as a precedent-setting trial, but they botched it. Rather, the court punted it. They just said, the Court of Appeals punted it. They were like, we're not going to touch this issue. We're going to say procedural defect to kick it down the road, which they oftentimes do. But there are trials that are so perfect in their factual circumstances that the court cannot avoid answering the question. So I'm always fascinated by those. So that's another one. Let me see. Where are we here on my notes? Immediate or lasting impact. I think that's a prerequisite. Like this is a must. In order to be a trial of the century, it has to have an immediate, and it doesn't have to have an immediate. It has to have one of these two.
One of those two, because some of them don't necessarily have huge lasting impact, but might have tremendous short-term impact. Like, I don't know if Rittenhouse. I don't know if Rittenhouse is going to have lasting impact.
That's fair.
But in terms of short-term impact, Rodney King.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if the impact is that lasting, because sadly, society, we didn't really learn a whole lot of lessons. But I feel like the short-term impact was tremendous.
Well, the short-term impact in Rodney King involved rioting.
But I mean, that's,
if you saw the tape, I mean, that's the other thing about these trials. And would you make a case for the George Floyd case?
I think it's too soon to say.
It's
maybe
too soon. It certainly had immediate impact. It had immediate impact.
Yeah, and I think Rodney King had a much bigger impact. In some ways, I think that the Rodney King aspects, I think George Floyd had less impact in part because, we've heard it so many times, right?
Because of the Rodney Kings of the world.
Yeah, and I feel like at the time, Rodney King kind of opened people's eyes in a way that Floyd didn't. Because I think Floyd was really that we'd already seen it, right? So
well, and Rodney King was about I mean, at the end of the day, the George Floyd trial was about one particular police officer. Yes, there were others there, but it was about one particular police officer. The Rodney King trial was about a whole department. It was about the whole body of policing. So interesting.
But we don't know. Like, it could be that in 100 years, people are talking about Floyd and not King, right? We don't know.
It's true. And that's part of the debate, and that's the other thing about these trials is oftentimes, and I didn't have this as a note, oftentimes they're tough to talk about.
Yeah,
because people are emotionally charged in one direction or the other. They're tough to talk about. That's
the thing, is sometimes when you talk about these things, it can be really really a challenge, because some people might push back. And they might have very strong feelings about it.
Which is why that brings back the immediate and lasting impact part. There's immediate impact to some of these trials that are really controversial discussing, because the immediate impact in some of these cases involves acts of public violence. And sometimes it takes a cooling off period in order to assess the trial more neutrally. Huh. Interesting.
No, that's a good thought.
All right. So let me see where we are here. And then last, and this is for me, this is my fun part, because I enjoy the attorneys. I like these trials because I love the characters involved.
It's not
when I say love,
just the lawyers, though.
Yeah.
Because plenty of the trials end up, one thing we often see with like wrongful conviction trials, and this is kind of an unfortunate thread through a lot of them, is that they often describe the guy who gets convicted as something of a weirdo, right? Something of a strange person, right?
Mm-hmm.
So often people might get convicted in part because they're weird. Or
you're right. Lizzie Borden,
people say she was, people were saying she's, unusual and weird in sometimes weird is just in the sense of an outsider. And that might not be for any reason that's like improper or anything like that. It might be that, for instance, they're of a different race than the majority. We see that in some of these trials, right? Where people end up, where racism plays a part into making somebody an outsider, that then makes it easy for them to get caught up in one of these rushes to convict that unfortunately often make up one of these trials of the century. Mm-hmm. Often that strong swell of public opinion against somebody leads to a trial of the century, which is kind of awful, right? So
I would say so. Okay, so those are our criterion. Now, shifting focus. Depp v. Heard. Just over a year ago, a certain trial took place in Fairfax, at which I met the individual on screen with me, Ian Runkle, as he does a stretch of pride.
Oh, that was a stretch of back pain, but also pride.
Also pride. Also pride. And we're 1 year out from that verdict. So we're looking back on this trial and wondering, under those different criteria that we laid out, is it too early to call this case a trial of the century?
Also, can I share a Rob picture?
Oh no. Yes, you may.
Okay, because yeah, this one's kind of a fun Rob picture.
What's the fun Rob picture?
That's a Rob picture.
Oh. What am I doing?
You're sleeping.
Oh. Yeah.
In the lineup.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. That's a good Rob picture because it's also just I'm hiding. Yeah. So Depp v. Heard. That was Depp v. Heard.
Yeah, and that was crazy.
Oh my gosh, it was. Before we do that, let's catch up on some of these to see if there's any questions we can talk about.
Fair enough. And we don't need to just focus on the burrito.
Burrito. Angelica Deliana, thank you. Here's another super chat for figuring out my name. I got it right. I hope I got it right. Thank you. I say if someone is eaten, it qualifies the trial of the century. Ryan Man YYC, if that's your only criteria, because here's the thing, there was a time when that was, think Donner family.
Ooh, that's a thought. I don't know the Donner family had a trial though.
They didn't. They weren't tried. So there's a time and an understanding where that's not viewed as convictable behavior. Donner family, like that, entirely acceptable. Now, yeah. Creepy, but
I mean, there have been other instances where people have resorted to cannibalism and not been charged. The plane crash that was I think it was, from Alive that was it that group that had to go on to cannibalism? Yes. So that was Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571, where people, I don't think anyone was charged over that.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Was. Yeah.
Huh. Okay. So let me see here. Sky's Neighborhood. The trial that started it all. Trials of the century back with a bang. Have you been sleeping on concrete in preparation? No, I just haven't been sleeping in preparation. Same thing. About the same thing. Thank you, Sky's Neighborhood. Josh at Ten Hog, thank you very much. Robin Ian, hope you have a great first live stream of Trials of the Century. Unfortunately, I can't watch it live with you, but we'll definitely watch it tomorrow. Thank you, Joshua. Very much appreciated. Amazing Meta, thank you. I've spent the day merging my kitchen with my mom's. It's something I've been putting off for more than a year now. Moving on without a loved one is insanely hard. It is. Ooh. It really is. My condolences. That's a very tough loss. Yeah, I lost my dad, and you forget. You don't forget. You just kind of move forward. But that's tough. My heart goes out to you for that one. Lori Ellis, Rob made you something. Need your PO box info. It's in the about page for the channel, so you should be able to see it there. Thank you, Lori. Very much appreciated. Nanner, give your brain time to swoop. Thank you, Nanner. Crystal, you have a wonderful community and well deserved. Thank you very much. Azam, thank you for the super sticker. Very much appreciated. Thank you very much for being here. 9-Inch Nails Gal, thank you very much. So excited to be here after work and mama duties keeping me off. Talking to EDB about StreamYard and memberships. She might be able to do something like she did with Super Chat savings. Not sure if they did it for her or everyone though. Super Chat saving is a new thing that was very much, it auto stars them. That would be thanks to Emily D. Baker, who hounded StreamYard until they gave up. So that's a big thank you to her.
Oh, that's so fantastic.
I know. Island, what if any witnesses really cringe your opinion? That's a trolling remark. I get traumatized by what if any. What if any, 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 what if any.
I still find that funny, but
I don't know if I can hear that like in court.
Do
If
we
I
need
hear
to
that in
explain
court,
that?
I'm
Do we need to explain that reference to
yeah,
people?
let's do that.
Um,
So yeah, go ahead.
So Elaine was having a lot of trouble with her trial advocacy, and part of
Who's
it was that
Elaine?
she was struggling a lot with the concept of hearsay and the concept of
Leading
what
questions.
leading questions, I guess, was the big one. Yeah. And so a leading question, you're not allowed to ask your own witness a question that suggests an answer. And so you can ask only open-ended questions. And so Elaine was trying to get around this by putting what if any. So instead of did you do X?
No,
Where X
here's the
is
code.
suggestive.
Ms. Heard, did you have bruising on your face that night? That suggests the answer.
Yeah.
Objection
What
leading.
if any bruising did you have on your face? And then the judge eventually had to step in and be like, you can't just use what if any
As
to
attention.
to solve all of your problems. But it was so obnoxious and so blatant at times that Rob and I just there was a point where we were sitting in the courtroom looking at each other like, seriously?
Can't do it anymore. I just can't do
Yeah.
it anymore. Oh, Rosalind, thank you very much. I'm here for the bromance origin story. Yeah, it's fun. We'll get to there. We'll get to there in a minute. Maria Sophie, thank you. Needed that, and Ian has the tie. The tie is going to make a trip to Glasgow soon, right?
It hopefully, assuming that the airlines don't have a strike.
Yep. Maria Sophie, need a live stream to play as I work. Almost started to a replay of the Depp trial, but you guys are here. Thanks from Sydney, Australia. Thank you, Maria. That's very kind of you. Conda Strike, thank you for the super chat. Amy Jojo, the Drew Shadeen case led to searchable sex offender registry. She was the victim in this case, but that's how I learned about it. Interesting. Is that a Canada case?
No, that's a
US
US case
case?
because Canada doesn't have a searchable registry. In Canada, you can't look up who's on the registry.
Really?
It's only for police use.
I don't know if I like that. I mean, I can see positives and negatives to it, but that's going on the list.
It makes it a lot more easy for people to reintegrate into society because it's practically impossible for, like, if you can't get a job and you can't, it makes it difficult for some people. So,
interesting. Thank you, Amy Jojo. Much appreciated. Vincent Rando, seeing that Rob pick reminds us to thank Nurse Liz. Indeed.
Nurse Liz was amazing. Is amazing.
Saint.
Absolutely.
Oh no, I had to see one here. What if any Amica cream was she wearing? That's brutal. That's brutal. LK Ryden, thank you much. Granddad made a gate with the boat. Was an engineer making ships, turned it into a wall decoration before it gets too worn because it reminds me of him. The urn and the keys are beautiful, going to mean more to them than you know. Thank you very much. Thank you. I hope so. I can only do so much, and that's my ability to kind of give back. Just Buffy, happy broversary, Robian. The Robian stuff's kind of cool. That's kind of funny. I do enjoy that. Diana B, the trial got so many of us, this LawTube family. I would agree, and I would say that that's one of the lasting impacts about this particular trial. EDB, Elaine, your mic, Elaine.
Oh, God, that was funny.
Thank you, Chris. Chris at M96, what, if anything, would we be doing right now if not for this trial and bed-breaking testimony or Judge A comments? Thank you, Chris and M96. And I see you have a robot now as your image. That's really cool.
That is a cool robot.
That's a neat one. So, now, talking about Depp v. Heard. Now, what's funny is this was shared to me by Against the Tide, one of our mods, very kindly, who drew my attention and reminded me that a certain article is still up. What's the origin of Depp v. Heard? This opinion piece, written December 18th of 2018. that's still on Washington Post's website. Opinion, Amber Heard. I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. That has to change. So the article that forms the foundation. Wow, that's a lot of eyeliner. I didn't even see this photo. That's a lot of eyeliner. Okay.
Wow, that
it's a lot.
now I need to look it up and see if there was an eyeliner shortage that occurred sometime around when that picture was taken.
Like a steel shortage. Editor's note, June 2nd of 2022. So just a little under a year ago. In 2019, Johnny Depp sued Amber Heard for defamation arising out of this 2018 op-ed. On June 1, 2022, following a trial in Fairfax County, Virginia Circuit Court, a jury found Heard liable on 3 counts for the following statements. You know what? Washington Post, thank you. Which Depp claimed were false and defamatory. 1.
And the jury agreed.
Yeah, that's a jury found liable. I spoke up against sexual violence and faced our culture's wrath. That has to change. 2 years ago, I became a public figure representing domestic abuse, and I felt the full force of our culture's wrath for women who speak out. And 3, I had the rare vantage point of seeing in real time how institutions protect men accused of abuse. The jury separately found that Depp, through his lawyer Adam Waldman, defamed Heard in 1 of 3 counts in her countersuit. That's not a terrible editor's note.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair one.
I would say that's pretty fair. That's not too bad. But leaving the article up. I mean,
the thing is with that editorial note, it's probably fine.
Yeah, it's not them. It's just her.
Yep.
Oh, and then...
Oh, God.
You want to read that one?
Amber Heard is an actress and ambassador on women's rights at the American Civil Liberties Union. The ACLU is kind of... yeah, they've kind of dunked on themselves with this one.
So, this op-ed, written in 2018, led to a trial that lasted 6 weeks in Fairfax County Circuit Court, the second trial on this particular issue. But uniquely positioned. So the first trial was against The Sun, a publication or journal, or a periodical, rather a news source in the UK. And Johnny Depp sued that news publication, The Sun, seeking or for defamation, saying The Sun, the publication, defamed him. And the problem is with that is that that's a lawsuit against the article or against the publisher. And Amber Heard was not a party to that case. That then resulted in this case in Fairfax County, where 6 weeks of trial, 2 celebrities, a lot of memes, a lot of media involvement, a lot of opinions in one direction or the other, Twitter wars and all of the like, resulted in something I've never seen in my years of practice. So here's the complaint that originated it all. Filed March 1st, 2019. It was a defamation suit.
And I just got to say, I think a bunch of other people, I thought that this was really not going to be a trial of the century in any way.
I didn't think it was going to be a trial.
I thought it was going to be we knew it was a trial in the sense that it's happening, but I didn't think it was going to be a trial in the sense of actually having issues to discuss. I thought it was basically managed somehow to get over the motion to dismiss hurdle, and then was going to just get slaughtered at trial. And the reason why is because it is so difficult for a public figure to make out defamation. When you are, when you're a person who is known by millions, whether that's positive or negative, it's really hard to make out a defamation case because the standard is so high. Like actual malice is a brutal standard. So that was why I started out being like, I don't think this is interesting. And I actually kind of thought, I was like, people are following this because there's celebrities involved, but it's not really an interesting case. So I didn't really get into it until I started watching, a little later, and went, holy crap, there's something to this. It was actually Depp's testimony. I tuned in initially at Depp's testimony, and I went, oh, these allegations actually have some legs to them, and he's actually doing pretty well on testimony. Like he's looking credible. And I was like, huh, that was interesting. So yeah,
there was a lot before that. Give me 1 second. I need a refresher real quick.
Fair enough. All right. So while he's away, I will show you an image or a thing of, he was talking about just how much it became a circus. Let's bring up something to just show how much it became a circus out there. All right. And you can see James from court there. I'm snickering in the, you can hear me snickering there. Somebody was asking if the alpacas spat at anybody. The alpacas were very well behaved. This is such a freaking story.
When lawyers became celebrities.
Yeah, they were cheering like that, and that's just Camille and Ben Chu. Johnny Depp was not in that vet.
What's funny is this is an interesting question to the chat. So to the chat, how many of you know the names of other attorneys in these famous cases? Okay, so I want to ask you, O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson. Name more than one attorney in that case.
No.
I mean, pick your case going back in as far as you can remember and name the attorneys in those cases. Now, what's interesting is some people are going to make a comment, and I think people are going to start making comments about recent cases, and they will, because that's, I think, one of the lasting impacts of this trial. Think, for example, in the Murdoch case, Creighton Waters, Dick Harpootlian, Jim, what was Jim's last name? Not Jim Harbaugh, no. That's the coach.
I don't know.
Jim Griffin.
I only know Harpootlian because his name is kind of ridiculous.
Yep.
I've already forgotten the lawyers in the Sanderson and Paltrow. I mean, I never really knew their name that well. I mean, Owens, but then there's Clark Kent and Mr. Sniffles. And
did he get his neti pot, by the way?
I mailed that off. Yep. Now, I mailed it off with like no note or any context. So he's going to get that thing and be like, who the fuck?
Well, yeah. So let's go back to just the origin of this particular trial. So, and there were some questions here I wanted to actually pull up. Here for years. What grabbed your attention about the trial? Honestly, nothing. Like, at first, this is defamation. Defamation is inherently, how do I say this kindly?
Boring.
In a legal sense, it's boring. Yeah, thank you. You're focused on one sentence or one statement and determining whether it was false, defamatory, and had damages to someone's record or someone's character to the point where they have a monetary loss. And oftentimes you're dealing with people who, at the end of the day, is it bad to say some people deserve defaming? No, I don't want to say that. Take that back, Rob. Take that back.
Some people deserve the comments they get.
Yeah.
And in those cases, those comments are not defamatory typically.
Yeah, generally speaking. But defamation trials they're boring. They're really boring. So when this was about defamation, I'm going, are you kidding? How is this going to be significant? But then you start to see the underlying action. You realize it's not about defamation so much. It's about the subject matter. And now we're arguing merit of a relationship. And relationships are dynamic and they're complicated. And the issue is no relationship is purely black and white. It's never that simple. It's always varying areas of gray. And when one person depicts the relationship as being 100% something, you start to get into problems. And then the testimony happened. Once that testimony started, any hope of me turning my face away from this trial?
Oh, well, I didn't start watching until Depp's testimony. That's when I tuned in.
What about Baruch?
I watched him after.
Oh, really?
Yep. I'm pretty sure it was after. I mean, I'm going from memory here and it's fallible, but I'm pretty sure it was that I saw Depp and then went back and went like, I got to go through and watch everything else that has already happened to see if he was contradicted by a witness or something. Because I watched his testimony and went, oh, wow, this is, this feels credible, right? This feels like, this feels like he's telling the truth. And I wasn't, what I was expecting was not to see him and go, he's lying. What I was expecting to do was to go up and feel a lot more,
he said, she said,
a lot more equivocal, because typically in these things, what you'll have is like, I am in the right on this, and they will be dead credible on that. And then they'll get into other areas and they'll be like, and that's when they start getting fuzzy and you're like, yep, that's the point where they've got a point, right? Usually it's kind of a bit of both sides. One didn't feel like both sides. It felt like when I saw that, I was like, he's just coming off as dead credible. So then I'm going back. You
felt uncomfortable, right? Like you hear him testify and you feel uncomfortable.
Well, and here's something. Runkle gave him terrible odds at the start. My odds for him at the start were like, somebody asked me, what do you think Depp's chances of winning were?
0.
And I said 0. And they're like, not even 1%. I'm like, no, 0. I was just like, the standard is basically like going to fight a wood chipper.
Oh my gosh, that's a new one. What was it during the members only? You said it's like it's dynamite full of bees. Like this one is like you're going to fight a wood chipper. Ian, ow. Where did your brain get?
My brain just does that. It's
but why? Of all the things, it's like going to fight a wood chipper. Okay, I'm gonna borrow, but I'm making fun of you, but I'm totally gonna borrow that later.
But I mean, the thing is, and then later when it started to, I mean, after Depp's testimony, my comments online were, this is now going to come down to Heard. This is going to come down to Amber's testimony, or if they've got some other witness that can really blow this up. But this is probably going to come down to Amber Heard's testimony. So, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts there.
Well, yeah.
And we can talk a bit about that later.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So I guess let me see if I can't do this. Let me remove this one. Let's start talking about stop a screen, share a screen, do the things.
Push button, wiggle joystick.
Push button, do the things you need to do. Rob, you can do this. You can do this. You can do it. It's processing. We're fast forward through some slides. There we go. Make sure we've got the right one pulled up. Let's start talking about this trial in the context of the criteria we laid out. Steers the law in one direction or the other. Turning point. This is what you said. Defamation is boring AF.
Yep.
This wasn't a change the law case.
And defamation cases are almost never change the law cases because a lot of the law there is settled. And I don't think Depp changed the law. Like, yeah, you've got it up on the thing, right? It's Depp was just applying existing law to a really emotional set of circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
So
the only thing that we had a caveat here was that Twitter, lawyers, and social media and implications on clients' liability. The one aspect of this that changed the law that I thought was Waldman.
Yep. And I actually think that this is an area that this is the only thing I'm sad that they couldn't have seen, that they couldn't have taken to appeal. Because
it needed to be resolved. It needed to be fixed.
Especially as a lawyer, right? Like, do I need to now worry about, like, if I mouth off to somebody, are they going to go through and decide which of my clients was mouthing off to that person? Like, if I get into a Twitter argument with, like, somebody, is that on behalf of my clients now?
Mm-hmm. And then, where was it? I saw this one. Hang on. Yvette brings this question. TMZ. Yeah, you saw a publication. You saw a major media publication try to intervene and object to one of their writers or one of their reporters testifying. The reporter was testifying voluntarily. Spicy Draco, for anyone who's wondering. The reporter shows up to testify voluntarily, and TMZ seeks to intervene to prohibit that testimony from happening. That was wild to me.
That was. So, I mean, I don't think that was unusual law. So, yeah.
Oh, hey, Morgan. That is you, sir. That was you. That was a part of the law that I thought was weird. I thought the Judge A made the right call there. Like, what grounds do you have to object? He's here voluntarily testifying.
Yeah. He basically said, listen, those privileges apply to protect a journalist who doesn't want to testify. But when he does, you can't use that to protect your organization. So, yeah.
And then also you think about what TMZ's motivation. What was TMZ trying to do there? This is a rabbit hole. We can explore that for a little bit. What was TMZ trying to do? What was their goal?
One, control. I don't think they wanted anybody seeing under the hood. of, because a lot of Morgan's testimony was things
That's
like,
true.
here are
Like,
our processes.
we get
of
information
how-
beforehand.
Here's how we vet things. Here's how the things we would know before we publish this, right? Here's the things that we would check. We would not have published this information without having vetted it.
Sources and methods. It's like the CIA. Sources and methods.
Exactly.
Sources and methods.
So the TMZ doesn't want anybody looking under the hood of that one. Especially because, I mean, they're a controversial organization, right? TMZ probably gets sued a lot.
Oh, they've got great defamation attorneys. Guaranteed.
Oh, I'm
guaranteed.
sure that they've got like they've almost certainly got like an in-house team of lawyers whose job it is to A, vet the F out of a story before it goes, and B, write one hell of a response to a demand letter.
Oh, not true on the vetting the story before it goes. They bossed the Tiger Woods reporting earlier this year.
Everybody's going to make mistakes, right? But
That's
I'm
true.
guessing that there was some vetting on it and so forth.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Well,
Morgan, aka Spicy Draco, had in that one famous exchange was going like, TMZ is sort of notably litigious. When he was talking about his risk in attending, that was when Elaine was trying to suggest that he was there for his minute of fame, and he's
15
minutes of fame.
15 minutes, yes.
And he's going like, you know how much I could be screwed by being here? Like, are you crazy? And then the very famous clapback of, what about you there?
Could be saying the same. Yeah.
Could be saying the same about you taking Amber as a client.
It's interesting. So that was a part that was fascinating to me, was the media. The media seemed to have, and it depends on which media outlet you were with, but those media outlets seem to have a position. They seem to have a dog in this fight. It was weird. And that's why I keep talking about Sam Shepard. That case, historically speaking, and maybe Borden too, Lizzie Borden, where the media outlets all of a sudden seem to have a very firm position in favor of one part or the other. And you're just wondering why? Why?
Well, this one I think was very much there was a media battle behind the scenes. And it was really based on how the different PR strategies went.
But why? Why were they invested in one person's narrative over the other?
Well, because the one was playing into a narrative that was already popular in society. That was the popular sort of notion of, sort of, in some cases, men are the perpetrators of domestic violence and never the victims of, right? And that was sort of this and that's where they got started on that, and they got committed early. And then once they're committed, they don't really want to get any information that's going to contradict them, because they really sell what they're doing based on credibility. And if they say, well, we were wrong about this, well, then they're ditching their credibility. So now they're committed on this bad path, and they keep going on that, which made it very hard for Depp's team to do any PR, because they were listening to Heard's PR team, but not Depp's, even when Depp is like, hey, I've got some good information. So what does Depp's team do in response? They go to independent media. Mm-hmm. And that just pisses off the main.
No, we're jumping ahead
more. Okay.
I just realized we're jumping ahead. I just put my feet in the ground like, oh no, we have another slide for this. Yes.
Next slide.
No, not next slide, because we have the last point, the one that I want to fight. Well, not fight. I want to jurisdictional debate and the fight, and why. Ian disagreed with me on this. I said this was a key issue to this trial. And I think that he's right in the long run. Who remembers
the arguments on jurisdiction?
I think that he's right in the long run, but I think that I think this was important, because this trial could not, it's the groundwork. that led to this trial being as significant as it was.
Oh, I mean, any civil trial there's a huge amount of ground game that has to go on, right?
Like the fact that the trial occurred.
Yeah. And, you know, in criminal law, you're not typically doing as much ground game work. We're often not taking depositions or anything like that. It's just you call a witness, you do it live, right? With that witness on the, on the stand, you examine or cross-examine them and see, you do some prep, of course, you prep the witness, but you don't, you're not typically getting all these, affidavits and depositions and whatever else. But in a civil trial, that stuff wins or loses your trial. So,
well, this one, and that's the thing. In any other jurisdiction, this trial wouldn't have happened.
Yep.
So
I mean,
the
he
fact that
needed
this trial
to not have it
exists,
thrown out on, on that.
Yeah. So, and this was an opinion letter that was back in 2019, July 25th, 2019. To give you an example, to give you an idea of how long this trial was in the making. 2019, they're having this argument over jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And this is Judge White who writes the opinion letter. And the question presented was whether the court should adopt significant relationship test or adhere to the long tradition of lex loci delecti, whatever you want to say, adopted in Virginia. When you're a judge writing an opinion, you can kind of glean what the opinion is going to be by the actual header that he uses, or adhere to the long tradition of, and then do the facts support publication of the op-ed in Virginia or elsewhere. So 10 pages of argument and debate in 2019 allowed this case to proceed to trial on the merits. That wouldn't have happened. So yes, it doesn't change the law jurisdictionally, or for like, it's not the Erie Doctrine case, but it does give you a little bit of behind the scenes on how important it is to set your cases up in a way where they can succeed.
I mean, if Depp hadn't had such fantastic lawyering behind the scenes, and that includes Waldman, who was assisting with a lot of that stuff in terms of strategy, but also Chu and so forth, that it would never have gotten off the ground. And I can tell you, as much as it would be easier to sue you or, well,
don't say that out loud on a live stream,
a defamation case against history teacher Lisa in our chat.
Okay. Well, no, don't subject her to defamation. Pick a random person.
That was a random person.
Well, did you pull a screen name like his? No, that's not a random person. That's a person. So history teacher Lisa does not deserve to be defamed.
But just because the test against defamation of a person who's not a public figure is easier for them to make out, but they would still have a hard time, with the ground game that was necessary on that.
Yeah, it's
we've got Nicole Christine saying it's okay to use her as a
okay. So Nicole Christine, yeah, okay. There, you can use that as a target defamation hypothetical lawsuit. But yeah, it's honestly the ground game that went into this trial. I've never really seen that much work behind the scenes in a civil case like this. Yeah. 2019 till 2022. Like cases go on for a year, 2 years, 3 years, but not on a simple defamation case.
And I mean, they literally spent, millions of dollars.
Millions of dollars. They could have bought sharks with lasers attached to their heads. Millions of dollars.
Yeah, but it's
so I think so let's swap that out. Jurisdictional debate and the fight. I'm going to say ground game.
Yep.
So
Well, I mean, there was a lot of ground game on that. That isn't just the jurisdictional stuff, but also just like the defamation, like the depositions and so forth. And this is the one place where I will defend Elaine a bit, because Elaine seemed to have decent ground game.
She did.
When you see her work in depositions was a lot better than her work in trial. A lot better. I was a lot more impressed with her examinations in the depots than in trial. And so, like, and I think that's just because she's a very experienced, civil litigator. So yeah.
And M. Cockcroft makes a point here, and this is right. It wasn't simple defamation. You're right, because it was defamation by implication, which has pretty good foundation. And honestly, I think it's the right way for the law to look at these cases, where you can't get around a defamation claim just by saying every other detail that speaks about one person and one person only and just leaving out their name.
Yeah.
But it was also like it was a big issue. How do you prove that a statement like that, I was a victim of something, as demonstrably false?
It's really hard. Especially, I mean, some of the statements were just, I was a victim of abuse.
Yeah.
And abuse is such a huge concept, because it doesn't just to sort of establish how much this is a difficult battle, is that first they had to pin down what abuse means, because left on its own, abuse could mean anything.
Abuse could be an opinion.
Well, it could
be like, take it outside the realm of defamation.
It could just be like, hey, Rob, your hair sucks. That was an abusive comment. See, look at his face. He's unhappy. So, that could be abuse, right? And of course, I'm kidding. It's an example. I picked your hair because it's one of the things that chat gets thirsty about. And so I was like, I know that this is one that we're probably safe on, that I'm not hitting any weak points. And where chat would be happy to stand up and defend you here.
Yep. Thank you, Nicole Christine. Oh God. Yeah, but it's like so what is abuse? How do you define it? It's so broad. It can be anything.
And then they had to actually Amber Heard. Then they had to actually pin down what Amber Heard meant and what she was implying to the world with that. And they couldn't have done that without her help. People have asked me, like, who do you think the star witness was?
Amber Heard.
Star witness was Amber Heard. She is the key to all of this. And that's really exceptional. So yeah, it
was interesting, because you're right. It's not changing the law, but it's kind of saying it's the definition. It's allowing the person to set their own definition and then subject themselves to judgment on that definition.
I sort of describe it as the Ghostbusters principle.
Go on.
The first Ghostbusters, where it's choose your fate, or like choose and decide. And it's like, what did you do?
I didn't choose anything.
The harmless ghost.
I didn't choose anything.
Harmless Marshmallow Man.
We always used to have the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Oh my gosh, why am I now thinking about Ghostbusters?
But in this case, she's now said in what abuse meant to her, or what she was trying to convey through her testimony. And then once she did, then that's what the jury was deciding on. Like, you get to pick the standard. And if she had she
chose Mr. Stay Puft.
Yeah, if she had if she'd gone with what Rottenborn was trying to go with, like,
my client's crazy. No,
well,
I mean, not like not negatively, but
not,
yeah, kind of.
I mean, that in part, but also just she says he's abusive because he's banging cabinets around. And, because sometimes he says mean things.
Mm-hmm.
If that had been the version of abuse that she was trying to say that she meant, I think they would have had they would have had a very difficult time making that out as defamatory.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, she got up and she was saying that it was like she was swinging hard for the fences on a very elaborate explanation of elaborate explanation of what she said went down. And yeah.
Francisca has a question. Doesn't the fact that it was defamation by implication was trying to change the jurisprudence? I think that it wasn't fixed by Virginia Supreme Court. It had been well established. Defamation by implication, Virginia was well established, and it had recently been litigated 2 years prior in a case that was rather tragic involving a child that had died at a school. And that went up to the Court of Appeals. It had been established. It was there. So it wasn't changing anything there. Now, she might have been trying to change it, but that running against that case history where you have the Pendleton case as the backdrop, that was a losing battle. So, all right, next slide. Question that society was conflicted on and societal values questioned. Ooh, this one. The media arguing that there were grander implications to this trial. The media wanted this to be a trial of the century more than anybody else did in the world.
Yeah, they really did. The media was basically absolutely hoping for a strong condemnation of Depp. From the beginning, that was really what people were angling towards. And it was interesting because I think the media was actually surprised at how many people like Depp. And I mean that in a very genuine way, that they just like that the media internally seems to have decided that everyone wrote off Johnny Depp back when the initial allegations were made. And then they were surprised to find out that Depp has supporters. They were very surprised to find out. So this thing that kept happening at the lineup is there'd be some media person who would show up and they'd go up to the front of the line and they would say, "Where's my press pass? I'm here from East Iowa Press or something." And the sheriffs or the deputies would be like, "You don't get one. You don't get one. Like you have to meet these criteria that were set out by the judge, and that's law and crime. You have access to the same feed everyone else does. So you don't get one."
Can I just say I love Judge A for that?
I really do.
That the media order that she put in place, I think needs to kind of, and I'm going to make this remark. This is one of the lasting implications of this trial. That needs to be the standard bearer for trials going forward. The trial itself, people have a public interest in what's going on in the courtroom. And the public, courthouses are public buildings that is funded by taxpayer dollars. They have every right to be in that building.
Yep.
But the media has a right to be there too. But how do you control the media's right to be there? Well, you give them access to the same feed, and then you treat them like every other normal citizen. They can wait.
I went to a court proceeding here in Edmonton that was a big media proceeding, and the judge actually said, he said, "Okay, who's with the media?" And it's like a bunch of hands went up. He said, "Great. I just want you to know you've got no special rights to be here.
Yep.
Everyone's got a right to be here, but we are low on seats. There's more people here than there are seats. So you guys better be here early." Like, if you're not here to put your butt in a chair, you're not here.
And
so
that's how it's supposed to be.
Yep. But the media was so used to having that very special access that they tried to show, like, they came in and they tried to be, they were trying to be like front of the line. And then they would get bounced, and they're sitting there and they're like, I just came from Iowa to do a day in the courtroom and I can't. What
and then
do
you
I
start, but then you start interviewing everybody else, and they say,
And then
I
it was-
came from Michigan, I came from Ohio, I came from Texas, I came from Florida.
So they kept doing the story of lineup, right? Let's do the lineup story. And over and over and over again, that's what we saw, is they would do the lineup story. And I ran into a number of media people who were like, so how many people here are for Depp, looking at this lineup of people? And it was like, well, almost all of them. And a lot of them would be like, really? Almost all of these people are here for Depp? Like, where are the Heard people? And I'm like, not really here, believe it or not. There's just not a lot of them here, and they're probably being quiet because it's not a real popular stance right now. They were actually, like, a lot of them were quite surprised at how much support Depp had. And I think that really suggests that they'd kind of misread the room in a big way. So,
but then the media went on a defamation a definitional rampage. So they immediately tried to put everyone that they saw at the trial into a box. They couldn't decide who these people were. And they said, you guys just can't be normal everyday people, because society can't be split this far in favor of one person versus the other. They couldn't decide. So they were like, all of you have to fit into a box. How do we explain you all being here? Oh, that's it. You guys are crazy psychopath fans. So we're going to put you in that box. They were so, we're only an hour and 38 minutes in. They were so up their own rear end that they couldn't, there's a clip in Friends, and I know you haven't watched it, but you've probably seen the clip where Ross is trying to navigate a couch around the corner in a stairwell, and it's like, pivot, and he's screaming.
I've never seen it, but I will take your word for it.
They couldn't pivot. They couldn't understand that they might have gotten it wrong. That they might, at first glance, they might have not understood who these people were.
Well, the problem
instead, they just kept trying to put them into that box.
It's that credibility problem. Like, the only thing the media had was basically saying, we are the only reliable source of truth, which made it real difficult when they were going, hey, believe us, but people were seeing different things. They really had to be like, we have to double down on this, because if we were wrong before, we could be wrong now. And
this part here, so Family IT Dude, is a great thing. Great comment. Society can absolutely be split in favor of one party. The media just couldn't believe it wasn't their party. And I think this is the part about this trial that really made it really important for me to think about these trials of century, and why I started down this road right about a year ago of talking about these historical trials. How many of these trials did we get wrong? How many of these trials did the media coverage get wrong? If this trial is an example of media coverage and trials, and what you see on the front headline of the newspaper the day after a trial is decided, how many of them got it wrong?
And I gotta say, my batting average on trials is way better than the media's has been.
Yeah.
Like, I got this one. I got Rittenhouse. I got Paltrow. I got,
No, that's not the tie.
This is not the tie. This is actually when I did remember to bring a tie. But this is the line. And I mean, it's me in the, in the foreground, but you can see that line and how far it extends. That was there every day. And like vast majority of people were there for Depp. I heard a few people who were there for Amber, but very few.
Yeah. So how many of these trials with Depp v. Heard being your benchmark, like this is the new window that you have to look into trials that are going on. Maybe they got them all wrong. Maybe they got a few wrong. I mean, you think McDonald's coffee cup case?
Oh, media got that one real wrong.
Horribly wrong.
Yep. And when you look at a lot of the wrongful conviction cases, a ton of them have situations where like the media doubled down. And
Lindy Chamberlain.
Cases, yeah. Oh, Lindy Chamberlain, the media was horrible too.
One of the biggest injustices that's ever kind of occurred is that trial. The whole trial it became a joke. Dingo ate my baby. Well, you know what they found years and years and years afterwards because of some unfortunate accident of a hiker? They found the remains of the child in a dingo den.
Yeah.
She was put through the ringer. So,
yeah.
And the media doubled down on Rittenhouse too. I see in the chat as well. Yeah.
Yep. And the thing is that they've still been doubling down on a lot of these things. They have still been, there's a lot of figures who are still doubling down on Rittenhouse. They're still doubling down on this one. Kat Tenebarge is going to be going on about this one for the rest of her days.
Oh, she will. But you can hubris. You can admit that you're wrong. There is a lot to gain in admitting you're wrong.
Yep.
You learn going forward. I've been wrong plenty of times. I'm happy to admit it. I mean, I'm not happy to admit it, but I do.
Well, and sometimes admitting that you're wrong actually makes you more credible and believable, right? When I note that I think that when I thought Depp was going to lose until I got midway through things, like, that's not like, oh yeah, don't listen to me because I don't know what I'm talking about because I got it wrong. It's no, I changed my mind with evidence, which is really what you want out of people, is to change your mind with evidence. So
impacts on society over and above just those in the courtroom. Did the disposition of this trial have an effect? And I said nope rather dismissively, but I think that it might have, but not that would rise to the level of a trials of the century.
I just look at the timing. They got a men's shelter open in Canada.
Yeah, and that
around the timing of this.
I thought about this too after this note was in, and this is based on comments. So this is pulled directly from the show notes that we made during the members only. But you're right, because I got some of those comments too about. I mean, you made the comment about the men's shelter, and there hadn't been anyone there, before, right?
None in Canada. There were shelters that would occasionally accept men, but weren't men's shelters, and often they were insanely difficult to get into for men. But this is the first men's shelter, like a men's only shelter. So, yeah.
So I kind of take that back. It did have an impact, but I still don't know that it would. Trying to judge this objectively. Subjectively, I very much appreciate the impact it had on certain narratives, believing that men could be victims of abuse. That started to creep into the narrative more. And I appreciate the fact that it did.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yep. I think that it did have an impact.
I think you're probably right. I think I was too dismissive with this one, saying it didn't have an impact. I think it did. Okay. See, You guys, it's important to be able to take a step back and recalibrate and kind of think, my first judgment was wrong. That's fun to admit.
Well, I mean, clearly you've just lost all credibility.
I have so much credibility by making that first judgment call and then backstepping and kind of going, nah, maybe it did.
Wouldn't it have been better to just like double down and ride that right into the ground?
I should have.
That bomb right all the way down to the ground.
Yeah. That was sarcastic, people. Thank you for those who cannot quite pick up on that. The trial itself impacted society. That's a big hell yes. Like that's a absolutely. You saw a whole new set of characters enter the foray. Public relations warfare. My word. I mean, every day of this trial, Depp and Heard were on the front page of damn near every single periodical, every single publication. I don't think I've ever seen PR ground game like that. Like that was like O.J. Simpson. So the PR teams were doing their damnedest, and we talked about that a bit. New media versus old media. I like this. And someone made a comment in the chat earlier. A certain media publication, the LA Times, ran an article, published it, and then later had to correct. In the article, they indicated that Jason Momoa testified at trial. It was a spoof. It was a complete fabrication. Someone that was playing Jason Momoa like on a TikTok, faking testimony. I mean, and the LA Times ran with that article. Like we're just like, Jason Momoa testified in support of Johnny Depp, calling Amber Heard, that she did things on the bed. Like, really? Really? So old media got that shit wrong. And to some of the people in the chat who are saying that they were men that were subjects of abusive relationships, I'm sorry for going back on this. I just saw a couple of comments. I've represented men and women that were victims of abuse. I know personal friends that were victims of abuse at the hands of a woman in their relationship. I know same-sex inter-partner violence is significant as well. I've seen them on all sides. That's why I had the ability to reassess and kind of see that this position of this trial did have a lasting impact on certain people who felt like they could then now be heard. Bad choice of words. That their story would now be given credibility or would be deemed credible, or they could have an outlet. But new media versus old media. We were talking to LA Times and their terrible reporting. New York Post was notorious for it. Who else, Ian?
Which was the one that that talked about Jason Momoa and his testimony?
That was LA Times. That was what I said. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was good. It was fantastic. And then new media. A bunch of new characters that the old legacy media didn't care to hear from.
Mm-hmm.
Two of them are on screen.
It basically became a way that information was getting out that the media couldn't control and didn't have the ability to stamp their message on. And so instead, what they were trying to do was to discredit and demean.
Mm-hmm.
So
the randos, the people that were talking about the case, that despite the fact that several lawyers were talking on YouTube about the case, they ascribed it to just TikTokers and people that were just rolling out with temporary content. That umbrella guy, Tug.
The Umbrella Man or whatever it was.
The Umbrella Man. the umbrella person. The not previously named, the person who hides behind an avatar because, I couldn't believe how afraid They were. When you start seeing like legacy media, like figureheads openly commenting and dismissing your commentary, but also remembering to call out your channel name or who you are, you know you've gotten under their skin.
I was kind of disappointed because I don't think any of them called me out specifically. And I was waiting for it because I was like, I could use the traffic.
I got called out and I got put in line with a bunch of TikTokers. That was the call out for that one.
Yeah, I saw EDB got called out. What is it? Legal Bites got called out. Rakeda got called out.
The monetization. It was the monetization that I forgot about that. How enraged they were that people were.
Oh yeah, and like
income.
the media does it as a charity.
Yeah, like all those commercials they put in between all of their network spots.
You know, they're clearly not doing it as a charitable thing, right? It's so
well, and then you got to see firsthand how nasty the media plays. That's another thing about this trial that I just hadn't seen before, was how they are not afraid to play dirty.
Yep. Oh yeah, I mean, some of it was really ugly.
Doxing.
So yep. Doxing, various sorts of attack, you know. So yep.
Yeah. And then this last one, different court, different players, different outcome. The whole debate over this was already tried in the UK, and trying to explain that over and over and over and over and over again, the difference between the two systems.
Yep.
Yeah. So that had a lasting impact. All right, let me see. Next slide. The public/societal debate on the subject matter and the media's involvement in that debate. Oh, we already hit this one. Trusted names yet untrustworthy content. I would say that was absolutely true. Long form content versus sound bites. The media ran headlong into a fully informed populace. That was wild. The number of people who weren't just fighting sound bites with sound bites, but who actually had watched a bunch of content, like a bunch of the trial itself. So when the media publications ran out with these little 30-second snippets, there was a big number of people that were kind of shooting back and saying, no, you didn't watch. You obviously don't remember or see the whole trial or any parts of this. So, and this one I like, the cast of characters from alternative media that somehow ended up on the same side. Politics be damned. Dude, everybody. I couldn't believe. If you look at the demographics of my chat, your chat too, Ian.
Oh, yeah. Well, it was really weird sometimes to see like just who all was, you know, who all was on the same side, including at one point, one woman who went there to watch Amber out of support of Amber, who walked out of there going, she's lying. And I'm going, like, well, you've got all of these different groups sort of united. And one of the groups that was really strongest in their voices was actually survivors of domestic violence. Because a ton of people say, like, I watched Depp and I watched Amber, and Depp felt like me and Amber felt like my abuser. I heard that from tons and tons of people, and I was just like, oh, wow. So.
Well, and it's the cast of characters. So I made the comment, like with the chat, I've got conservatives, I've got liberals, I've got people of different sexuality spectrums. I mean, honestly, because common sense splits all divides. Like common sense is right there in the middle, and common sense still has a place to exist. And this was a trial where common sense came to be, and it was like everyone forgot all the other shit they were fighting about, and they agreed about one thing. They're like, hey, we might disagree on like 90% of the shit we talk about, but on this one we agree. And the cool part about this for me was that one little thing, that aspect of people coming together to agree on one thing and then kind of look across the aisle or look at different people in their lives and say, we disagree on everything else, but we agree on this. Maybe there's something else we can agree on. Like maybe there's one other thing we can think about. Like maybe we can have a discussion again. Maybe we can disagree and voice that disagreement intelligently and rationally, and not like, these other media figureheads are telling us we should feel. This trial brought a lot of people together that you never would have seen hanging out before. So don't know if you had any additional thoughts on that. I'm sorry. I'm just rambling and talking.
I'm just pondering right now. But yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. So perception of the justice system and the impact the trial has on that. Vindication versus excoriation. The response to this trial. Mm-hmm. So many people believed that this trial was either 100% right or 1000% wrong.
Mm-hmm. And it often like ties into their preconceptions about things.
Ian's not checked out. He's probably looking at the chat or looking at something else.
I'm not checked out. I'm paying attention here.
He's there. Yeah, people were committed. And when they dug in that position, when the trial ended up in a result, I mean, honestly, you had to figure, did you come to an understanding that people basically had their decision? They knew that Amber Heard was going to lose, and they were already amping up their own emotions for the excoriation of the trial.
There were people who were like leading up to the story. Like you could read into some stories that they knew what the verdict was going to be, and they were already like pre-raging about the verdict before the verdict was delivered. And it's like, media, if you know that Heard is going to lose, why are you posting a story about how much Heard is righteous and deserves to win, and how it's going to be a miscarriage of justice when she loses? Because you knew she was going to lose. Like, that's what that article tells me from all of that. So, yeah.
John, point well taken. I explained that at the beginning of the stream. I don't have PowerPoints today because I was making an urn, and the urn had to fly to Honduras today.
The urn is very pretty, by the way.
4 hours. Yeah. So I completely accept this criticism. And actually, I had slide decks that I was working on. Just didn't get the substance on the material. Promise you, next trial, we're going to get back to slide deck. Don't worry about it. I promise you it'll change. It changed the delivery of the landscape, how people get their news, legal information, that is. The number of people who I know now, who basically say, who literally say, I will read a headline and then I'll go on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean,
they won't read the article.
The number of people who have lost faith in the media is huge. So, yeah.
And then this part had kind of been leading up to this one before, because I would say that this was Rittenhouse. Like Rittenhouse brought this to fruition. So did the Floyd case. Seeing behind the scenes to trials, how the sausage is made. So seeing trials and the public not really, like some members of the public understanding what a trial, how it played out. But then so many people wanting to tune in for the information because they didn't trust mainstream media. So they wanted to watch the trial itself. But they watched the trial and it's like, I don't understand what's going on. But they don't want to go back to the media. So they need someone to explain it. And that enter lawyers. Lawyers like to talk, and some of us like to teach. So that's, to me, that's a big aspect of this trial.
Mm-hmm. Being able, well, and just also being able to follow along with relevant commentary. It's not even just this, right? Because you also see, I watched, a discussion of a crash, like a vehicle crash. And there was a YouTube video that was a guy who literally does accident reconstruction. And he was talking about like, hey, this crash, here's why this happens. And I'm going, why would I watch the news story version when I can actually just hear the version from somebody who actually, knows what they're talking about? And that's the problem, is that journalists often are talking about all sorts of factual things, and they don't necessarily have any background in it.
The number of articles that started or discussed, and we talked about this with Hogue, because Hogue was doing his Hangouts and Headlines at this time.
Yeah.
The number of articles that started with a legally incorrect statement, like they articulated the law wrong right at the very beginning of the article. Like within the first paragraph, they get the law wrong. And you're going, I know you guys have legal departments. I know you do. And there are lawyers in there. Or how hard is it to pick up the phone and call a lawyer? Or hell, turn on YouTube. There's a bunch of lawyers that are talking about it right now. Get the law right.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is that defamation of all the subjects is something that a newspaper should be good at. Because it's one of the key things that a newspaper has to tiptoe around. And so if a newspaper is big enough to have a staff lawyer, it would literally be like, walk down to the staff lawyer and be like, I got some questions about defamation, and your entire job is to answer them. So let's do this.
Literally speaking, the benchmark decision about defamation is New York Times v. Sullivan. New York Times got their ass handed to them already. You think they would have learned their damn, just take a beat. Learn a lesson. Rolling Stone has been sued for defamation how many times? Like, get your shit right. What the hell?
Yep.
Yeah. Why are YouTube lawyers? What? You know what it is? That's what it is. This field, YouTube legal analysis, would not exist if they had done their job. It wouldn't. We wouldn't have anything else to say. They would have done their job. But they just can't. And they can't pivot. They can't pivot. Oh, gosh. Okay. All right. Moving on. Legal precedent. We talked about this briefly. This is weird. Like, the idea that a client can be sued for something their lawyer says. Can we talk about how crazy that is for a second? Like, lawyer gives press conference, client gets sued. In what world? How? Why? So
it's bizarre to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was short side. The immediate and or lasting impact of this trial. Lasting impact, we'll see. Immediate impact. And I listed a bunch of trials here. look at how much changed in legal coverage. Also, look at how much interest was piqued in these cases. People saw Depp v. Heard, and they saw that trial, and they were like, I can watch this. And they're fascinated. And they're like, what's the next trial? Oh, well, the next trial is Murdoch. Well, that had some opinions and complexities. Next trial is next trial was Brooks. Brooks was after Depp, but before Murdoch, right? Yes. Next trial was Brooks. Well, that had people like scrambling for like a safe place to watch a trial and questions. So that was there. And in Brooks, you saw one of the impacts of Depp and COVID more generally was we can now satisfy the confrontation clause of, the Constitution
Via video link?
Via video link.
Yeah.
And that was fascinating. We learned something, and we saw box forts being built in court. We learned that some people are irredeemably narcissistic in their behaviors, but the video link part and the trial being streamed live, you think that they weren't informed by the Depp trial in how they handled the media? You know damn well they did. To the point where the camera's being pointed at a certain direction.
Yeah.
So that was one thing. Then you've got Murdoch. And you know damn well Murdoch was influenced by Depp v. Heard. As far as... Yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, they're just really, they're really pondering the sort of implications of the media aspect and the trial outside of the trial. And I know in Canada, there's a lot of discussion of, we don't have any of this because, we don't have any of this at all because we don't have media in our courtrooms. And the thing is, we do have the same thing, the trial outside of the trial. It's just you only get one voice, and that's the media's voice. And they're often really wrong about it.
This is an interesting question. Had there been any lasting impacts in Fairfax County? I don't think so. Well, I mean, I would say publicly, like these public trials as they're being held. I will say there were a couple other media trials, high profile murder trials that were impacted by this. But honestly, I think the way that media order, I go back to Judge A's media order, that thing was great. Where was it? Like, yes, please like the stream. History teacher Lisa. Fairfax County was put on the map. LOL. Who knew it would be such a destination? Fairfax County is not small. I loved when everyone was saying this small county in Northern Virginia, Fairfax County. It is not small, folks. We have like half of the federal government lives here in Fairfax County. So yeah, is what it is. But then you've got Brooks, then you've got Murdoch, and then you've got the Paltrow trial. And you know for damn sure that the arguments being made about Gwyneth Paltrow having her face on screen.
Oh, yeah, that was so...
That was Amber Heard. That was 1,000%. I don't care how you try to argue that there was no connection, that it was completely independent. No effing way. That was 1,000% the memes that were made of Amber Heard when she was listening to testimony on the stand. And Depp, for that matter.
In fact, I think that he referenced like popular trials and yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And then you've got the Daybell Vallow and the Koberger cases. And I'm sorry for the order, but the Daybell Vallow case, That was frustrating because we got the audio a day later, but you didn't get to see the trial. And I don't know that it's a tough question, but they had a really good argument that I was listening to. Anjanette Levy on Law and Crime was making the point of the judge barred them from having cameras in the courtroom for closing arguments. There were no witnesses. They promised that they would keep the cameras pointed at the attorneys, not the parties. And the judge turned them down. Tell me the arguments. Why? Because there's no witnesses to protect. You're recapping testimony. It's evidence that you're going to hear. You're telling the public they're going to hear it the next day. What is the possible justification for not having cameras in the courtroom for closing arguments?
No idea. Oh, wow. The video of the Vallow trial is being destroyed by order of the judge. That to me seems like you're destroying a court record.
You want to have faith in the court system, right? We all do. You know how you do that? You don't destroy video. You let people see it. Sunlight is truly the best disinfectant. Washington Post. God, I hate that I have to say that. But yes, it really is. Like, why are we afraid of this? I don't understand. And yeah, I saw a comment earlier. Can you make that argument at the Supreme Court of the United States? Absolutely. And people do all the time. To the point where now the Supreme Court has, I think, live audio, I think you can listen to. And the audio is released next week too. But why? What are we afraid of? Why are we gatekeeping, protecting every single person? It's just dumb. And then you look at Koberger. The judge right there is playing games. And I get there's sensitive information, and there's the sensibility and the sensitive information about families and people and victims of crime. I understand that a lot. I really do. But the public does have an interest, and you can't just dismiss that interest. You can't just say it doesn't matter.
I mean, the public, the public has an interest in this regardless of what of what happens in the courtroom in terms of that. So
they're going to report on it. Yeah, you're right. They're going to report on it. Would you like them to have accurate information or inaccurate information? Because I thought trials were about like actual accurate information and trying to actually figure that out. So just saying. Anyways. The personalities. And there's a reason this is my last slide for this trial. Because in the previous cases, you had Lizzie Borden, F. Lee Bailey, Clarence Darrow, Dudley and Stevens judge. I mean, go down the list. You can Johnny Cochran, what was her name? Martha from the O.J. Simpson trial. Forget her name. Marsha or Martha? Struggle session.
I can't remember.
Mindy Chamberlain.
Yeah.
Marsha Clark. Yeah. The personalities. And this was a case where you saw lawyers become celebrities. Camille. The first name Camille. The first name Camille, you say that out loud, and there's a certain amount of the population is just going Camille Vasquez. They are thinking Camille Vasquez. Elaine, same thing.
Yeah, I mean, Camille Vasquez, Depp, and Heard, who are both famous figures and kind of larger than life figures.
Well, you had a story about Camille that you wanted to talk about.
Oh, well, I mean, there's many stories about Camille, but
Your favorite
I,
one.
I assume you're talking about her in court cross-examining Amber Heard.
The second time.
And then there is like literally sounds of thunder as Amber is trying to answer. And then, what is it? And then after the thunder, there is, you know, a beam of light that illuminates her.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And then I have this coming up. And this I 1000% agree with. History teacher Lisa. Camille became such an empowering role model for lots of young girls. Yep. And I am 1,000,000% behind that. I hope that every person who viewed the law as being this male dominated practice looked at Camille Vasquez and was like, I it's not even just a place for me. I can succeed. I can be a badass here. I can own this courtroom. Like 1000%. I hope younger people watched that and saw that as well.
yeah,
That was
I mean, her
huge for me.
performance was awesome.
Yeah. So, what do we think? One year later.
I mean, I think it's too early to definitively say, but this has all of the hallmarks of a trial of the century, right? I think it hits almost all of the boxes. You look pensive.
I don't look pensive. I was wondering where you were going with that.
I mean, you can never say for certain, right? But it certainly looks like it.
I agree. Like I've never you see trials and you wonder and you look at it and you say this could be one of those. And what's honest, I mean honest to God, you look at it you're like this has the potential. It really does. Are they going to be talking about 10 years from now? I don't know. 20 years, I don't know.
I mean, it's a year later and it's still all over my Twitter feed.
Yeah.
Like a lot.
People still have emotional connections to this trial a year later. So it's interesting. So I just, yeah. That I need that on my Twitter feed. And the dude in the back that's going, what is this guy doing?
Well, he was just like, what is all of this?
Those alpacas. The one on the left is smiling.
They're both smiling.
It's legit. They're smiling.
They were both super friendly, cheerful alpacas.
So, I don't know. To me, I'll tell you, to me, this is a trial of the century because, well, do I really need to explain? Like, I got to meet whole new friends. I have a community of people that are awesome. I never would have met without it. I got to meet, what we say, the neurospicy bromance of the traveling ties.
That was, I mean, and this story isn't about us, but it's just kind of fun. The weird aspects there.
What's fun about this is that we gave the criteria. It's kind of why I wanted to do this one as the one that was, how we're going to set the standard going forward, because we can only improve. And I tell you, the slide deck needs improving on my part. But we've laid out the criteria. So when we talk about trials going forward, we have that criteria. So you can kind of judge for yourself whether the trial we're talking about deserves to be ranked in the trials of the century. And that's the dialogue I actually really want to hear. So honestly, from the chat, I really very much want to hear from you guys whether this trial deserves a place among the trials of the century. Whether that face looking at a camera at what was that, 3 a.m., something like that?
Oh, something miserable.
You look so pleasant, Ian. Just so happy.
Oh, I mean, in this picture?
Yep.
In this picture, I was just like tired and zoned out of my gourd.
The amount of caffeine you consumed.
Oh, it was lots.
Kill a horse. Kill a horse. Yeah. So, Depp v. Heard. Is it a trial of the century? That's the question.
Well, let's bring up our criteria again.
Oh, yeah, let's do that. Where was it? I just put it. I put it away. Criterion. All right. So, trial of the century. What makes a trial of the century? Window. Steers the law in one direction or the other.
I don't know that this one steered the law. So
no.
I think that point actually operates against it.
Question society is conflicted on. Societal values questioned. Yep.
I think that one is unquestionable.
Yep.
Yeah, it was there was a lot of assumption. I mean, a lot of people assumed from the outset that Depp was at fault because that fit with their notions.
Mm-hmm.
So
the trial's disposition or the trial itself had an impact on society over and above just those in the courtroom. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, look at Twitter right now. It is all over the place. You know, it's still a major topic of discussion.
Mm-hmm. Public debate on the subject matter and society and the media's involvement therewith.
Same point.
Yep. Perception of the justice system and the impact the trial has on that. Yes.
Yeah.
Worldwide implications, effects that go beyond borders. I'm going to score this one a yes, because this one this pits a question between the UK system and the US system that's not yet resolved.
And the number of people who were in our chats on these from all over the world. Mm-hmm. You know, people were following this from everywhere. So
yeah. Legal precedent. Nope. I'm going to say that doesn't have the box ticked for me.
No,
there's a question.
I don't think it does.
It's not. Yeah.
I mean, there's the Waldman issue. I don't know that would necessarily get followed in another case.
Yeah, I don't know.
So,
immediate and or lasting impact. Immediate, yes. Lasting, to be determined.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, some of these things are ripples in a pond that that go away, or some of them come back. So,
the personalities and characters involved. Can I say hell yes to this one? Like, yes.
Yes.
Like
150%.
Yes. Isaac Baruch, Dr. Hughes, Dr. Spiegel, Camille Vasquez, Ben Chu, Elaine Bredohoff, Ben Rottenborn. I mean, Johnny Depp, Amber Heard were some of the lesser characters of the trial. So,
and what is it? There was, I mean, we got the alpacas.
The alpacas are characters. Alejandro Romero, who was driving the car and smoking the... I forgot about Alejandro Romero. The vape pen and the eating. Kate Moss. My gosh. I mean, yeah. The characters. So, Tug, he's a character too in that. Yep.
Yep. That
All the characters.
That umbrella man.
That umbrella man. Yeah. So I don't know. Time will tell. Time will tell. Some people are saying the grumpy deserves a character reference. The grumpy does not get a character reference. The grumpy is a story that comes out of this trial that's like, no, really? That's what
The
we're talking
grumpy
about?
never did an interview, so the grumpy doesn't get to go in there.
So let's do this. We're going to wrap up with some super chats, and then we'll kind of give some parting thoughts until next time at Trials of the Century.
Oh yeah, and some of the expert witnesses, Dr. Curry, Spiegel was weird.
I've never felt more uncomfortable watching a witness.
I mean, the thing is he had his quirks and so forth that were like, okay, but then his testimony was so bad. I was like, what the hell?
Terrible. All of it was so bad. More deposition designations than I've ever seen in a trial in my life. Gosh, I don't know how they did that. That's miserable. Maria Sophie, Australians are horrified at the treatment by the media of Lindy Chamberlain. Yes, it changed our nation. Good that it did.
Yep.
Meadow, thank you. Do you think Ben Shoes anticipated the mainstream media narrative? I think he did.
I think his team really anticipated that they had to do they had to have a novel strategy there. So, yeah.
Here for years, Roblan or Rob Run or Run Rob. I can't decide which I like, whichever one you choose. Heather, thank you. Why is the standard different for defamation of a celebrity? Isn't something defamatory whether you are famous or not? Famous people or people that talk about issues that are of public concern have to have, there's a higher threshold. So, for example, the president. If the president could sue anybody for defamation and win on all, like for things that they don't really know. What's the best way? Ian, I'm struggling. What's the best way to explain this? Explain this.
It would be impossible to discuss politicians,
yes,
or celebrities, because you're like, hey, this politician did X, and at that point, you're like, well, great, like you'd have to have actual knowledge. Most of us aren't actually in like Trump's life or Justin Trudeau's life or whoever to actually have direct knowledge. We should be able to talk about things that we reasonably believe, right?
Yep. And it runs right up against the First Amendment too. You have the right to talk about things. You have the right to express your opinion. You have the right to report on your opinion and say whatever you damn well please. And if you start just enabling people to sue anybody and everybody because they disagree with their opinion, you're kind of trampling that right. So you set a burden, you set a threshold. You say you have to go above this level of intention when you're making those remarks about something that's ripe for First Amendment conversation, politicians, laws, issues of significance. So you do that to protect the First Amendment and then also protect the individual about whom conversations are being had. Still a widow. My introduction to YouTube and LawTube. Thank you for that. I think that's Depp Amber Heard. Thank you. Greg Myers. Thank you, man. This brings me back to the 12-hour Legal Bite streams and Kurt obviously absolutely going ape on Denison. What a crazy, fun, educational time. There's no better way to teach than while you're actually observing something that's the subject you're teaching.
Yeah.
So it really was. It's the best ability to teach the law is by watching law take place. Equality. I accidentally said in biggin at work today and confused my colleagues. What have you guys done to me? That's one person on this screen. I don't say in biggin. I think it's confusing. Don't look at me. Generous. Did I read that right? You continue to read that right. Haha. Yes, absolutely. The Wanderer, thank you very much. My coworkers would watch the trial after work and made a drinking game. They took a drink every time EDB yelled Elaine.
Oh God.
They were very hungover after Amber's testimony. Yep. I would need to swap out whatever that beverage was with water in order to survive.
And I would probably still die of water intoxication.
Oh, probably. Fem Natalie, Fem Natal, actually. Morgan Tremaine in the chat. I saw him. We chatted with him. It was awesome seeing him here. Thank you, Morgan, for stepping in. Greg Myers, thank you to the what got you into the case question. I heard tell the world, Johnny, on Instagram, and that was it. I was in. I had no interest until then. That's a really fair observation. And that's one that a lot of people echo. Like a ton of people echo that.
Oh, I mean, that was a really haunting, bit of recording.
And it was so appropriately saved for the last rebuttal cross.
Yeah.
Like that was one of the best bits of trial strategy I've seen, was saving that audio and replaying it right there at the very end. Oh, it was fantastic. Kyle Stark, thank you. TMZ could also feign protest. So if people tried to drag them for going against Amber /Me Too, they can say, well, we tried. They were motivated. They didn't want that testimony going forward. Gene Clark, the best part of the trial was the friendship formed with Rob and Ian. Can you imagine a world without this bromance? No way. Thanks, guys. Oh, thank you, Gene. I can't. I love this bromance. It's fun. Opposite of amnesia, thank you. This trial taught me to hear the facts first. It's a good lesson to take. Meadow, thank you very much. Do you think Ben Chu anticipated the mainstream media narrative? We covered that one. I think he did. Micro, Kimmy, I'm a survivor of DV, and the way she cornered him is never something I would have done, knowing what would have happened if I did. I barely had a voice when I was removed from the situation. I think, what you're explaining is what a lot of people felt when they watched that. A lot of these situations are very factually unique, and every relationship is different, but a lot of people felt a certain way watching Amber Heard testify, and it didn't jive with their understanding, and it changed a lot of minds. I'm very sorry that you were put through that. I'm very glad that you were removed from that situation. Piece of the puzzle. Thank you very much. AH hit the pinata so much. Everyone but her got a prize with each blow. I'm pleased for Johnny Depp that from childhood till now, he's been able to open up about it's shifting the societal norm of only women equals victim. What I will say here that I didn't think about before, Johnny Depp also set a standard for showing people that you're allowed to talk about this stuff. The tough guy approach of we don't talk about things that are hard or challenges we've been through, of burying that. Johnny Depp showed a bunch of people out there, a bunch of males out there, that it's okay to have these conversations. Yep. And you're going to find support when you do. So that's the big thing,
is knowing that that people might believe them is huge.
Yep. So I 100% agree with that. Iris in Texas, thank you much. In honor of monetization, suck it media, LOL. Thank you, Iris. Elizabeth Chetwood, thank you. Reasonable minds can differ politely. Yes, we can. Absolutely. Heather, thank you. Why don't federal courts allow cameras in the court? What are their reasons? Ego.
Yeah. I don't think they're good ones.
They put up a bunch of reasons. Like they basically say that they're going to take something out of context, that they're going to take a statement made during the course of an entire argument that could be a question. They'll take that question to suggest that the law is saying something that it's not. They view or they perceive the media as not having. Look, mainstream media came in with Johnny Depp, right? And they gave the narrative a 30-second soundbite. But what they ran into headlong was a whole other media source that was coming back with receipts. The federal courts haven't realized that second part exists. Like you open the courtroom, yes, you're going to get people that are using it for the wrong reasons, but you're going to get an equal and louder voice coming out in response saying, nah, y'all are full of shit. This is what's actually happening. So they're lagging behind and they need to not, but mostly ego. Ergo, Iron Fist. My son is a civilian attorney for the Navy, an adjunct professor at law at Seattle U, and published his first book, Medellin
Nice.
versus Texas, International Justice, Federalism, and the Execution of Jose Medellin. Wow. Kudos to your son, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Medellin versus Texas, International Justice, Federalism, and the Execution of Jose Medellin. Anyone wants to go check out that book, go look it up. Tammy Baines, thank you very much. Got here late. Ern is gorgeous. Husband is master toolmaker and owned a high precision machine shop. I know good work, and that is amazing. Thank you very much, Tammy. Automata. Public access matters. I saw. What?
It's got to be Mata.
Okay, it's Automata. Public access matters. I saw CNN cite Sharafi as a prosecutor, framing one question as seeking to counter Rittenhouse's self-defense strategy.
Oh, God.
Just checked, still up, uncorrected, a Google featured snippet even. Yeah, that's the problem. They have these hot takes that they don't realize are hot takes. Like,
well, it's not even a hot take. It's just out and out wrong.
Get your shit in order. It's not hard. You have legal departments. Ask the questions. It's your job. Damn it. It's so annoying. Ian, what trial should we cover next? I need 1 second. What trials do you want to cover next? You're the next selection.
I'm going to have to ponder. I don't think I can.
Well, ponder out loud for 2 seconds. I need 2 seconds.
Okay, fine. Fair enough. I mean, we have been talking about Dudley and Stevens with, but I mean, I don't know if we want to start off redoing some of them. I think it's Milgaard that's left to do. So, of the Milgaard, Morin, and Marshall, I forget which one it is. We have been talking about Rodney King. That might be interesting as well. So I'm not sure. That there's a lot of options. Chat, what do you think? What do you think we should go for? West Memphis 3. Louis Riel is a good one. That's a good thought. I see people saying new ones. Fatty Arbuckle.
Fatty Arbuckle. We haven't talked about that one. Like, that's been suggested so many times. But this is next month is yours. You get to choose it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I want a trial you love.
I'm going to have to decide. There's a lot of options out there, and it's going to be tough to pick one, I think.
Yeah.
So
for those of you guys wondering, like, how we do this, like, Ian and I are going to switch off. Like, we're going to have cases that we both love, or that one of us loves more than the other. And if Ian loves a case, I'm going to research it because Ian loves it. If I love a case, Ian's going to research it because I love it. It makes it more interesting, especially when one of us already knows a lot and the other person's coming in for the first time to the new case. So
it's sometimes interesting when you're like finding out about a case somebody else loves.
Oh yeah. And
then you're like, you get to fall in love with it too, or maybe just be like, I hate this case and we're going to argue about it.
Like McDonald's. Like, did you know about McDonald's before we talked about it?
I knew about it. I didn't know it in as much detail.
And when you did,
I was like, wow. A lot of this is exceptional.
Lindy Chamberlain was like that for me.
Yeah.
Lula, one of my regulars at work, is named Elaine. And every time I hear her name, I hear Emily Baker saying, Elaine, your mic, Elaine. That's unfortunate. That's really unfortunate.
Oh, God.
L444. Yes, because everyone was talking about this and glued to it. Even the kids at my daughter's junior high talked about it. TikTok was flooded with it. Yeah, TikTok. TikTok becoming the haven for trial content. Who saw that coming?
Certainly not me.
Aaron, thank you. Hi, guys. We appreciate all you do on LawTube. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicole has ADHD. Me too. The two of you and EDB inspired me to start an ADHD channel to provide community for us all. Intro video went live tonight, terrified and excited. Thank you. Nicole has ADHD. I imagine the channel is Nicole has ADHD. If it is, please go check that channel out. I'm very, very happy that you felt inspired to do that and that you took the leap.
It's a big
no
leap.
time like the present. It's a big leap, and I hope you have a lot of fun with it. Honestly, it's great. So if you love doing it, do it. Absolutely 100% behind that. ADHD shouldn't hold anybody back. So Lindsay, Judy holding down the live transcript is still my favorite character from the trial. Oh, yeah, the live transcription. Oh, my gosh, I couldn't believe that. The iPads on the desks when they went up sidebar and they were reading the transcription of what was happening. One of the coolest things I've ever seen.
I have never had that in a trial.
That would be so much money, but it would be so cool.
Oh, yeah. I would love to have that budget just once.
Micro, Kimmy, where'd my last super chat go? They are auto starred. So hopefully hopefully you heard it. It was starred. We did talk about it. We talked about it, I promise. Because they're auto starred. Thank you for being here, Micro Kimmy. Very much appreciated. Kristen M96 witness with hashtag Amber Heard. I never thought I would hear that in a court proceeding, especially when it's asked by her attorney. So that was one. The Milani Consular Corrector Palette. Epic part. Oh gosh. This makeup kit. This makeup kit was what she used to hide her bruises.
And then she backed away from that.
Because it didn't exist.
Yeah.
Because the media, the company that made the makeup kit was like, you ain't bringing us into this bullshit.
Yeah.
Nope. Yeah. Okay, that was a good part. I forgot about that one. Don Lionheart, thank you much. I opened LB's stream in the mid. Show the world because I saw Hogan there, hooked until the end. Very little lawyering was done by me that month. Don, you and me both. Like me getting hooked like happened a little bit like before, but you and me both. It became very hard to do the things at work because it was like I couldn't believe what I was hearing out of my ear. And that led to a second job or a third job. I don't know what number of jobs I have right now. I'm confused by the number of jobs. But either way. Heather, thank you again. Thank you so much for these trials of the century. I always have questions and I learned so much from them. Love these opportunities to ask and get answers. Thank you. Heather, thank you for being here. Honestly, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys listening and the fact that you like these historical trials and the fact that you like hearing Ian and I talk and you hear runkleisms such as dynamite full of bees, going to fight, picking a fight with a wood chipper. I need a book of runkleisms. Can someone make a book of runkleisms, please?
I'm gathering runkleisms to possibly put into a book.
I need a book. I need a book, and I need a cheat sheet to the book so that I can pull it up when I'm having a debate and just like flip to a page and say the random runkleism that lands. That's a fun game. Like in a conversation, flip to the book of runkleisms and just answer with the runkleism. I think it's a fantastic idea.
I'll have to collect them all together. My Discord's got a channel where people post them up as they come up. And then yeah. So
yeah. Let me do this real quick. Go ahead.
Somebody else made a good point. There's a lot of other things that we've sort of run into that maybe we wouldn't have, like Corey.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have learned about Corey. So,
yep. Kathy O'Toole, we can't forget the most important thing we got from this trial. Secret McSquirrel, she is so missed. She is. And she's hanging out. She's hanging out up there, keeping watch. So, yeah. And I have my squirrel pin. Miss our squirrel.
Yeah.
Ian, I decided I have a fun thing I'm going to do. You're going to like this idea. So do you know Mark Robert?
Yes.
And the squirrel maze and the squirrel Olympics?
Yeah.
I'm going to build a squirrel, like a squirrel house, and put it in my backyard.
I was looking at squirrel feeders, and to get any of them shipped to Canada was ridiculous, price-wise. Yeah, I'm gonna have to. It's just a matter of finding the time.
Well, I'm gonna make one. I'm gonna put cameras in it because I need to do that. Like, so, yeah, I'm gonna make a squirrel house, and you guys know me. It's not gonna be like a squirrel house. It's gonna be like a squirrel mansion. Like, it's gonna be like a squirrel. Like these squirrels are gonna live comfortably. So we're gonna have some fun with that. But yes, Secret McSquirrel she is very missed, and honestly, in that, it's gonna make me happy to do that because it'll feel like I'm like.
Mm-hmm.
We're not gonna talk about it. Yeah, Alan Fortenberry, I would buy a Runkleism book. Me too. Peggy Reardon, thank you very much. Dynamite Full of Bees should be made into a Mr. Bean show. I feel like a lot of Ian's Runkleisms could be Mr. Bean shows. Crazy Cat Queen, thank you. If I ever win the lottery, y'all are getting a chunk of the funds, a chunk to fund some of your financially challenged clients for pro bono work. I admire you both so much. You both inspire me to be a better human being. Thank you, Crazy Cat Queen. That's fun.
Here's to you winning the lottery.
Yeah, here's to you winning the lottery. Yeah. I try to do what I can when I can. Like stuff like the urn, stuff like the little stuff. It's not hard to be a good person. Anna thank you very much. I'm confused. It's the excitement over live transcription. I've worked with many live captionists. It's the same as CRs. The deaf community had it for over a decade. Are the courts that far behind? Yes.
Oh God.
Yes. The answer with that last sentence, that part right there. Are the courts that far behind? Always yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Insanely far behind.
Yep.
I can tell you that I had a trial that I showed up for, and I had put in a request that I needed a screen to be present for the camera or for the trial, right? So I needed a screen so that I could play things. And it came and it had like a literal VCR, and like the connections were just RGB connections. And I'm sitting there going like, how do I hook up my laptop to this? Because there was really no way to, so I'm sitting there going like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? And yeah, the judge was actually pissed because I'm sitting there going like, I can't play my video on this. And he's going, well, why not? And I'm like,
because it's a VCR.
Because it's like a fossil, sir.
It's not a fossil, Ian. I remember those. You do too. Damn it.
Well, I couldn't say that because, of course, the judge also remembers the VCR and thinks it's a very new technology. And so I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? And yeah, the judge was annoyed, and I'm just like, oh, crud. So, yeah, finally the judge, we had to play it just by showing I had to bring my laptop up and show the witness the screen. It was an absolute farce. And yeah, it was.
But you have to learn how to improvise on the fly. That's the thing. Like trial attorneys, technology doesn't work. That's like the thing about technology. It's not going to work when you need it to.
Yeah, but I was not expecting to run into a VCR.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like,
That's fair.
how often do you run into a VCR? Not often. Oh, this is. Did they wheel it in on a squeaky cart? It had the
Yes.
cart. It had the cart. It was on the
Yes.
cart.
Oh,
Like when you are,
school days.
yes, like when you were
You
sitting
knew it
there
was
and
a
your
good
teacher
day
would,
when the cart would wheel in. You'd be like, it's movie day.
yeah, they straight up had the cart, and I was just
Oh,
like, oh my god, what do I do with this? I went and tried to find an adapter to connect it to the screen. Wouldn't work.
I
Couldn't
can
get
see
it to
that.
work.
I can see that.
So
All right. I have to call out gifted memberships because my mods are so absolutely awesome that they screenshot the gifted memberships. Even though StreamYard doesn't send them to me, they screenshot them so I can see them. Midnight
that's
Dreary,
Against
thank
the
you.
Tide, who is awesome.
Yes, that is. Midnight Dreary, gifted membership. Vintage Willow, thank you very much for the 10 gifted memberships. Kay Stevens for the 50 gifted memberships. Froggy Girl for the 5 gifted memberships. Just Buffy for 20 gifted memberships. Anna, I, 5 gifted memberships. Kay, Sarah, 5 gifted memberships. Crazy Cat Queen, 20 gifted memberships. Carson Pratt, gifted membership. Karate Cat Mom, 5 gifted memberships. Vintage Willow, 10 gifted memberships. Brentwood Chic, 20 gifted memberships. Crazy Cat Queen, another 20 gifted memberships. Midnight Dreary, another gifted membership. Here for Years, 10 more. Barney Cat, 20. My word, you folks.
I might have owed the chat another showing of that.
Go on. That calls for an explanation. Even when you show it, you can't just show it. You have to explain it.
Well, somebody in the chat's going to know what this is.
I know, but you have to explain it.
So, when I went down, I saw some of the Depp trial, and I was I initially started watching the Depp trial because I was sitting there going, and what do you call it? I was there for a shooting competition, and I stayed a little longer to watch some of the Depp trial, and then I had to go back because I had a trial. And so I had to run this trial. And then after that, I was like, I want to go watch more of the Depp trial. I want to book a flight back. And Mrs. Runkle was like, are you kidding me? And I was like, no, I want to see this. I got to see how it ends. I got to see the rest of it. So she's like, okay, but like, you're leaving me to take care of the dogs. You're leaving me to, all of this stuff. So I was like, I will get you the necklace that you've had your eye on, because she had a necklace that she was like, it was at this jewelry store and it wasn't moving, like it was just sitting there, but she'd go by and she'd look at it and she was like, I want, and she's not normally a jewelry person, right? She's not normally a fan of like shiny things. So, but this, she was like, I want that. So I was like, okay, well, I'll get you that. I will go back. Like, this will all work out. Like, so, when I came back, we went in, we picked it up, we bought it, and that's the necklace. It's not a great picture of it. Along the one side, this little thing is a little gemstone, and it's pyrite all the way through it. So it's sort of gold sparkly.
Oh.
So it's very sparkly. It's very shiny. It looks, it's nice.
You know what's funny about that? And this isn't criticism at all. It's, I don't care what it looks like. She wanted it.
She liked it. Yep.
She wanted it. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care who else thinks it looks like anything. She wanted it. It was important to her. Ian made it happen.
Yeah, I was like, we're gonna do that. So, so I wanted to share that because there was a lot of people who were like, hey. And the other thing I quite like about it is that it's unique. It's not because there's tons of things where it's like you go down and you get like a standard sort of off the shelf thing from like whatever jeweler, and there's like tons of them out there. This one is made by a craftsman, and it's a unique piece. There's not going to be there's not another one like it out there. It's just made this one. So I like that. So
I love it. I think it's fantastic. Okay. Pretty close to the end. Let's see. IRS is still on MS-DOS. We hear the cheering from the whole agency the day they finally upgrade to Windows 95. Oh, Lindsay. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. All right. So that brings us to the end of the Super Chats, and that brings me to the reminder of, if you have not yet hit the like button, please do so. Please hit the like button, and please, if you have not subscribed to Ian, Runkle of the Bailey, his channel, please go do so. He has a second channel, Rule of Law. Please subscribe to that as well. Honestly, Ian's one of my best friends. 1 year in, and I'm with absolute confidence saying that that little tie, the bromance of the traveling ties. Where is it? Let me hang on. Where's my the bromance of the traveling ties? That's that Canadian ties. That's the one that he left for me, and then he's got that one over there. So like I said, one of my best friends, pretty awesome. Please follow him if you have not yet done so. For all of the new members, please keep your eyes out. There are shop streams on the horizon, not this week because Rob needs sleep, but next week for sure. And keep an eye out for future Trials of the Century planning episodes. So members only stuff. I've got Friday Night Frenzy coming up on Friday. You've got Monday Fun Day coming up next week.
Not right away. The next one of those will be on the 29th.
Okay.
I got to miss
great. Week. And then on the 27th of May, we have Lawyers and Dragons returning. So lots of fun stuff coming up. Please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell if you have not. A lot of fun stuff.
I'm so looking forward to Lawyers and Dragons. I got to practice the Gimlet voice.
You need practice, and the name. You have to practice that a couple times. Yeah.
Well, the name I'm just going to have like written down and stuck on my monitor in case I have to read it.
Yeah, that'll be good. And for those of you wondering about the members only book readings that we've been doing, we have someone to help us read our books from. I may have gone to like the Seuss experience, so we now have a narrator to the books.
You're gonna get sued.
Not right now.
Not right now. Just later.
Just later. To the mods and everyone here, thank you for being here. Mods are freaking amazing. You guys do a great job keeping this community great. Ian, thank you, my friend, for being here. That's it for us on Trials of the Century. You guys need to let me know in the comments. Let me know, Trials of the Century, does Depp v. Heard qualify? And if not, what are the trials you want to see us cover? So please do that. Thank you guys for being here. We're going to wrap up. And then until next time, we'll see you then.